heard of the immortal human cells? No? Let me tell you real quick. So her name was Henrietta Lacks. Now, who was Henrietta Lacks? Now you can see from my picture, she just looked like a very peaceful, ordinary woman, right? Hold up, because what I'm gonna tell you is gonna change your mind in a minute. Henrietta Lacks was a black woman from Virginia in the 1950s who was diagnosed with cervical cancer. So now, Henrietta was being treated in the Johns Hopkins Hospital at the time, and now doctors took her cancer cells without her knowledge or her consent at all. Now that seemed like, well, the cells are gonna be taken out anyways, right? But I need you to stay with me because it's gonna get interesting. Now, what made her cells so special? Now, unlike normal cancer cells that would just die, Henrietta's cells were not giving up. They were ready to fight, you know? They kept on growing and dividing and dividing and dividing. And then the doctors called them the HeLa cells. And the HeLa is from the acronym of the first two letters of her first and last name, which is Henrietta Lacks. So they started calling them the HeLa cells, right? Now stay with me, it gets interesting. Cells were known as the immortal human cells. Yes, they were known as that. That's because they kept on growing and dividing. And her cells actually helped in so many major medical breakthroughs. I'm talking about helping with polio vaccinations, cancer research, and so many other treatments that not just saved one or two lives, but actually saved billions and billions of lives. Yes. So Henrietta died in 1951 at the age of 31 from the cervical cancer she was diagnosed with. But remember, I told you when she died and they took her cells, like her cancer cells, she never gave any sort of like consent. Neither did she even know anything about it, but her family didn't know anything about it either. And they didn't know anything for 20 years. So what was the catch? Now in the 1970s, the scientists had to do more research. So they reached out to Henrietta's family. Of course they did. And now they're like, hold up, what are you talking about? She died 1951. You're coming 20 years later when we don't even know you guys are using her cells in the lab and they are still growing and multiplying till today. And not just that, is that her cells had been used to save this millions of lives. What? So of course something had to be done about it because it was on fire on the mountain. So later on, several things had to be done. For one, like her story became widely known because a book was written about her. In the scientific field, however, there was still a lot of heat. So a lot of serious conversations had to be had about patient consent and medical ethics. And then in 2013, the National Institute of Health actually had an agreement with the family to give them, some level of control over like her genetic information. Yes. And so now she was now being honored and is now being recognized as one of the important figures in medical history. So although it took a long time, 20 whole years, they were still recognized and included in the whole process. So Henrietta Lacks story reminds us of medical progress and the importance of ethics in healthcare, and her impact continues to shape modern medicine till today, and it will continue to do so. Thank you for watching.